The grand viewing spire of the celestial accord offered a silent, star-dusted panorama. Within its crystalline confines, a single human stood, his plain gray jumpsuit a stark contrast to the iridescent silks and polished chitin of the assembled galactic nobility. He was there as a cultural attach, a symbolic gesture from a newly ascended Earth. The air hummed with subtle melodies, and the scent of exotic spices. At the center of the gathering was a young royal from the young Valair dynasty. His kind were elegant, with long, slender limbs and skin that held a faint, shifting luminescence like mother of pearl. At a mere 21 standard years, he was considered brilliantly precocious, his intellect and strategic mind already legendary. He moved through the crowd with an innate, unshakable certainty, a jeweled circlet resting upon his brow. The human, whose name was Leo, observed the proceedings with calm detachment. He had been instructed to listen, to learn, and to offer no opinion unless expressly asked. It was a diplomatic dance, and he knew his place was on the very periphery of the floor. The young royal, holding court near the transparent wall, had been holding forth on the intricacies of quantum-fold governance. His voice was a clear, fluting instrument designed to carry. His large, dark eyes swept the room, and perhaps seeking a lighter subject of discourse, landed on Leo. A smile touched his lips, not unkind, but profoundly patronizing. "Ah," the royal said, his voice cutting through other conversations. "The representative from Terra. A fascinating study in resilience, is it not? To climb so far so quickly, with such modest biological endowment." The circle of nobles tittered politely. Leo said nothing, his expression neutral. Emboldened, the royal took a few graceful steps closer. "We of the Accord have watched your species with interest. Your history is a torrent of conflict. Your technology, until very recently, was primitive. You lack natural armor. You have no energy-sensing organs. Your lifespan is a brief flicker." He tilted his head. "And yet, here you are. It is almost charming. Tell me, do you find the complexity of our society overwhelming? The simplicity of your own social structures must have been a comfort." The words were not shouted. They were not crude. They were delivered with the flawless surgical precision of absolute, unexamined superiority. Each sentence was a perfectly polished stone, placed gently upon Leo's shoulders, meant to construct a wall of polite derision around him. Leo listened. He absorbed the commentary on human fragility, the condescending praise for their tenacity, the amused analysis of their art and music as pleasantly vigorous. The royal was not angry. He was not hateful. He was, Leo realized, simply stating what he and likely all present believed to be objective, uncontestable fact. Humanity was a quaint, scrappy, and ultimately insignificant newcomer, worthy of a pat on the head before being ushered to the children's table. For a long moment, Leo said nothing. The royal waited, expecting perhaps a stammered thanks for the insightful analysis, or a defensive rebuttal that would provide further amusement. Leo did not provide it. He simply looked at the royal. He looked past the luminescent skin and the jeweled circlet, past the title and the assured posture. He saw a 21-year-old who had never been told no, who had never faced a problem his status could not dissolve, who measured the universe against his own understanding and found it wanting. Ah, profound stillness settled over Leo. It was not the stillness of shock or of anger, though a colder, older part of him recognized the insult. It was the stillness of a door closing, of a calculation being completed, of a bridge being deemed not worth crossing. Without a word, Leo turned. It was not a dramatic spin. It was a simple, deliberate reorientation of his body away from the royal, away from the circle of nobles. He took one step and another, his movements calm and unhurried. The soft sound of his boots on the crystalline floor seemed suddenly very loud. The royal's fluting voice faltered. "One does not simply depart a royal audience," he said, a note of confusion seeping into his certainty. Leo did not stop. He did not look back. He continued walking toward the arched entrance of the spire. The gathered aliens parted before him, their murmurs a wave of startled confusion. The act was so utterly outside all protocols, all social scripts, that it rendered them mute. There was no precedent for this. Insults were met with witty retorts. Challenges were met with debates. One did not leave. Not like this. Not without a word. The human representative walked out of the viewing spire. He walked down the shimmering corridor. He entered a transit pod. He returned to the human quarter of the station. He filed a succinct report with his superiors, stating the interaction had been unproductive and that continued presence would not serve diplomatic goals. Then he began to pack his small duffel. Aboard the station, the event became a quiet scandal. The silent departure was dissected. Some saw it as the ultimate insult, a brutish snub. The young royal, after his initial confusion, painted it as proof of human emotional immaturity, an inability to engage in civilized discourse. But a whisper persisted, a troubling doubt. The human's eyes, in that last moment, had not held rage or shame. They had held something else. Something that looked like pity, like finality. Months passed. A minor border dispute arose in a remote sector, involving a resource-rich asteroid field claimed by the Vilair dynasty and a small, non-aligned species called the Keth. The Keth were peaceful, their technology rudimentary. The dynasty, confident in its superiority, dispatched a modest fleet to secure the claim. It was to be a simple show of force, a policing action. The young royal, seeking to cement his strategic reputation, was given advisory command. The Vilair fleet arrived, their ships sleek and menacing against the dark. They hailed the Keth orbital station, demanding compliance. They received no answer. Scans showed only minimal, fading energy signatures. Puzzled, they moved to secure the primary asteroid. As the lead vessel entered the field, space itself seemed to curdle. Not with weapons fire, but with light. Complex, shifting patterns of coherent light projected from seemingly empty planetoids, creating a disorienting, hypnotic maze. Communications shattered into nonsense. Navigation systems began to report impossible spatial data. The Vilair ships, designed for elegant battle, drifted like lost birds in a silent storm dot. Then the drones came. Not from the Keth station, but from the asteroids themselves. They were small, fast, and impossibly numerous. They did not fire lasers or plasma. They ejected a quick-hardening polymer foam that coated sensor arrays, engine nozzles, and weapon ports. Within hours, the formidable Vilair fleet was immobilized, blinded, and silenced, adrift in a web of their own confusion. From the shadow of a large asteroid, a single blocky human frigate decloaked. It was unadorned, all function. A shuttle launched from it, docking with the stranded Vilair command ship. The airlock opened. Leo walked in alone. He wore the same plain gray jumpsuit. He found the young royal on the command deck, his luminescent skin pale with fury and humiliation. Surrounded by his helpless crew, the royal stared, his mind struggling to reconcile this quiet man with the technological phantom that had just effortlessly neutralized his fleet. "You," he breathed. This is your doing? This trickery?" Leo regarded the trapped fleet, the disabled ships. His gaze was calm, analytical. The Keth asked for consultants. We provided them. Their mining lasers were easily adapted for holographic projection. Their ore processors make an excellent base for the polymer. This is not warfare. It is a prank. The royal spluttered, his sense of order collapsing. It is efficiency, Leo corrected, his voice quiet. No lives lost. Minimal damage. Objectives met. The Keth retain their home. You are inconvenienced. He finally looked directly at the royal. You spoke of our modest endowments, our brief lifespans. You were correct. Because our time is short, we do not have the luxury of protracted wars or elegant duels. We have a need to solve problems, to find the simplest, most direct path from threat to not a threat. He took a step closer. You measured us by your own scales. You saw no claws, so you assumed no bite. You saw no great lifespan, so you assumed no depth of thought. You saw a history of conflict and called it simplicity, never understanding it was a forge. Leo's eyes held that same unsettling stillness from the viewing spire. We looked at you. We saw your strengths, and we found the seams between them. The royal stood, speechless. The silence in the room was absolute. It was the silence of his own words in the spire, now returned to him, hollow and empty. A tow will arrive for your fleet in 48 hours, Leo said. The polymer will degrade by then. I would advise against returning to this sector. The Keth are under our consultancy. He turned to leave, just as he had before. Wait. The royal called out, the command brittle. That day, in the spire? Why did you not speak? Why did you just leave? Leo paused at the airlock door. He did not look back. Because, he said, his voice barely carrying across the stunned bridge, some conversations are not worth the breath. He entered the airlock. The door sealed. The human shuttle detached and moved back toward the blocky frigate. Soon, both vanished into the dark. On the Vilair command deck, the young royal stared at the stars, his brilliant mind, for the first time in his life, completely and utterly silent. He had not been outfought. He had been outhought, not by a great general or an elder,